For a long time, I didn't know that other trans people existed. I thought I was the only one. And so knowing that I wasn't alone, it changed everything for me. It actually gave me a future that I could get excited about.
Before we get started, I'd like to acknowledge the traditional custodians of the land on which we record this podcast, the Wurundjeri People of the Kulin Nation. We pay our respect to elders past and present. Hi and welcome back, or welcome to Boldly Me. I am Chloe Hayden, and on this podcast we are speaking to incredible people doing incredible things, and my next guest is completely and utterly embodying all of that, and I am so excited for you guys to meet her. Today I am welcoming Georgie Stone into the studio. Georgie is an actor, a writer and a trans activist. At age 10, Georgie and her family won a landmark case, making her the youngest person in Australia to be granted hormone blockers by the family court. She wrote to the executive producer of Neighbours when she was in year 12, pitching a trans young person on the show. Her pitch was successful, and not only was there a trans person in the cast, but it ended up being her. She is the complete and utter definition of bold and such a beautiful human being, and I'm so excited to be speaking to her in studio today. Georgie, hello.
Thank you for having me, Chloe.
Of course, I'm so excited to be speaking to you.
Same.
Oh my God, love it. Okay, before we get properly started, I want to know what you're hyperfixating on at the moment.
As always, I'm hyperfixating on Taylor Swift.
Do you know how many people have said that? Honestly, slave, so true, fair enough.
Yeah,
I love
obsessed. My whole TikTok
The whole
is
TikTok feed.
just,
Yes.
just Taylor Swift slaying.
So I've seen a few videos of you, a few interviews from you, and from the looks of you and your family, it looks like you guys not only have such a confident and brilliant understanding of identity now, but also from quite a young age in your life. I would love to go back to little Georgie and know what your life was like growing up and coming to terms and an understanding of your identity.
Yeah. I suppose I've always been aware, and I don't exactly know how it is, but my parents are both actors, so I suppose they taught my brother and I to articulate ourselves in like a specific way.
Yeah.
So, they taught us to communicate. So I suppose that's the way in which I was able to kind of get that across to them and keep that communication and that, connection going. But I don't know what it is. I feel like I've shaped so much of who I am from like what I watch and the stories that I read and was given.
Yeah,
so
right.
I think that's kind of how I became aware. But I don't know. I feel like it's something that a lot of trans kids connect to. We're sort of forced to be aware of our identity and kind of look inwards because that's the only way we can get it out there and explain to people who we are.
Yeah.
But it's a hard thing. I've never really kind of looked back and analysed how that came to be. It just kind of was. Sorry, that's a really weird answer.
I think that's a brilliant answer.
I just did.
You just did is brilliant. First of all, was there representation for you growing up? Did you ever see yourself in other people in your own life or in media or whatever that made you go, oh, okay, I see myself in that?
Not really in my early years. The things that I saw, the way in which trans women like me were depicted in the media was quite difficult. We were often portrayed as villains or tricksters or and worse, incredibly tragic lives. So that was kind of like what I was being taught my life was going to be. And, as like a 7, 8-year-old, that's incredibly difficult to digest. So my sort of sense of self and representation kind of came from characters like Hermione Granger, which I mean now given, Jacob is incredibly sad, but, young girls like her who were kind of different but really smart and
so powerful
and had opinions and that's kind of where I saw myself in. And that's kind of very much why I'm doing the work I'm doing is because I didn't see someone like me when I was young. So now I'm trying to like do that. And now, I'm seeing so many incredible trans women and trans people who are really visible and they're inspiring me a lot.
You were such a inspiration and such a beginning of that representation for so many people. You wrote to Neighbours as... How old were you when you wrote to them?
I was 17.
So you wrote to Neighbours at 17.
Yeah.
First of all, tell us what you wrote to them. What was your call to action for them?
Well, it came from, it was the beginning of year 12, and it was kind of like we were getting career advice and stuff. And then there was this teacher who was telling me, you're going to make a great, like, lawyer or journalist one day. And I was like, nope. And I was like, what am I going to do? I need to try and, like, start this happening now. So I wrote to the executive producer of Neighbours and just said, hi, you need a trans character. This is why. These are the benefits of representation. Here's why Neighbours is a great place to do that. Your audience will really need to see this sort of representation. And then I basically just pitched a character and a storyline and
wow, so you went the whole, it wasn't just a hey do this, it was like I've done the work for you, here it is.
Yes, yeah, I was obsessed with it. It was a very long email.
Wow.
And I went through like all the Wikipedia pages of all the characters basically that have ever been on the show, either main or like recurring. Try to find a name that hadn't been used yet.
Whoa, you said research.
It really, I mean, I kind of overdid it. Created this whole elaborate story and I got a reply 2 hours later, which was great.
Wow.
And he was like, yeah, we'll bring you in for an audition. That sounds great. And so I auditioned.
Straight up audition.
Yeah, well, it was, yeah, which was amazing. And then I didn't hear anything for months and I was like, yeah, I messed this up because I'd never auditioned for anything before. I'd never acted before, except for like drama class.
Yeah.
And then later on in the year, I got the job. But then they didn't really take any of my ideas except for the character was trans.
Yeah.
Created something new, but it was great. It was really great, and that was like major manifestation. It was all I thought about for like 8 months.
Like that's like next level manifestation though, because it's like manifesting is like, oh, there's already an audition for a character that I'm interested. I hope I get the character didn't even exist. You created a whole storyline, and they were like, yeah, we'll do that.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Thanks.
That is so cool.
I mean, well, it's because I figured no one's going to give this to me. No one's going to create this opportunity unless I push them to do it. And because I thought if I just kind of waited for, opportunities to come to me or for, casting directors or writers
you'll be waiting forever.
To get for the time, I'll never be employed. So I figured, and I still think this, if I want something, I'm going to have to create it myself.
Yeah.
And that's how people are going to see that these stories are valid and exciting and worthy of a platform. And it's funny because I see a lot of my experience in your experience as well in terms of being in the writer's room and making sure that the character is authentic and respectful. And I remember I met Thomas Wilson White, who's a writer.
My angel.
Incredible person. So clever, so smart. And Thomas was telling me about you and how incredible you were in the writer's room for Heartbreak and how you helped make sure that the character of Quinny was, really respectful and nuanced and what you wanted to see, what you wanted to portray. And that reminded me a lot of what I was trying to do on Neighbours and how great that writer's room experience was, making sure that this trans story was respectful and nuanced and that's the key to its success.
Of course. And that's it. Like you have to have the lived experience in the room and whether it's disability, whether it's trans, whether it's POC, whether it's LGBTQI, whatever it is, having the lived experience, not just on the screen, but behind the screen, in the writer's room and in the directors and behind the scenes, it's so important that we exist in all aspects of the industry because until we are the ones telling our own stories, it is never going to be correct or accurate or genuinely represented.
Exactly right. And it's also not going to be interesting because I think when people are trying to write about those things without the lived experience and they're just guessing, It becomes very general. It becomes very surface level, but it actually enriches the story when we're there to help deepen it and make it nuanced.
Of course, and give like your own personal insights, because the amount of times where people do just, and I think people don't realize how much of a hold and how much of a grip the media actually has on society and the way that we view all brands of people. So when you're actually in the room going like, hey, your view of who I am isn't actually necessarily the full picture or the full story or completely accurate. And being able to give that makes it so much more full, you know?
And it has real world consequences as well.
Yes.
Because that's how people will start to view us. It's from what they see. And that's why it's so damaging, you know, the kind of stereotypes of trans people being predators, being villains. When we're represented like that on screen, that's how the world sees us. That's where it connects to the real world violence and the real world attacks on our community. So we need to be part of the telling of our story because it will have real world consequences. So that's why I just admire you so much. You're great. We're doing good.
When your episodes started to come out and Mackenzie started to become known, what was the response like?
The response was largely very positive, which was really great. Lots of trans people messaging me saying that, you know, that was so important to see and it really changed their life, which was incredible to read. Some people who were actually realising that maybe that is a conversation they should be having with their family, or they use the episodes to help them come out, or helped them realise that maybe they were trans as well, or at least started that conversation with themselves. And then also some people who were like, I've never met a trans person before. I've never known about trans people before. And this was really educational for me. And now I feel like I'm better equipped to know how to be a good ally and a good support when I do meet a trans person. So those things were all incredible and just kind of surpassed my wildest dreams of what, you know, I wanted the character to do. And then there were some people who were really awful and, you know, said some really horrible things. But the vast majority of the messages were really positive. So yeah, I was really proud. I was really happy.
As you should be. Yeah. You've done something absolutely incredible. And like you said, not only life-changing, but I think life-saving. I think having young people see themselves represented on screen, I don't think people understand how vital that actually is for those young people to see.
Yeah, absolutely. Now I think of it, I think I was probably 11 or 12 when I did actually see the first trans women who were good representation. And I remember feeling like, I mean, it was such incredible validation, and it really helped, with, my sense of self and feeling that, because for a long time I didn't know that other trans people existed. I thought I was the only one. And so knowing that I wasn't alone, it changed everything for me. It actually gave me a future that I could get excited about.
Right, that you could actually see yourself.
Yeah, because for a long time I couldn't see a future, which was, again, so horrible for a young kid.
Of course.
So I was really, it meant a lot to me when there were other young people reaching out, saying those things, that they could see a future for themselves at last. And that is the power of storytelling, and that is the importance of the work that we do.
How do you deal with those negative comments, the ones that you receive either based on Mackenzie or based on your own life, growing up, and now? How do you deal with them?
Yeah, that's a really difficult question because it really depends. I think talking to family and friends really makes a difference, because when I see those comments, my instinct is to kind of go in on myself and to close up and to internalize it and to kind of go over it over and over again in my head. But if I actually vocalize it and talk to my family and friends about it, that really does make a difference. But also recently I deleted Twitter off my phone, which
honestly,
was really
the
great.
Best move you will ever make.
Oh my
Twitter
God.
is hectic.
Awful.
Everyone, I feel like every nasty person goes to Twitter.
Yeah.
Twitter is
like horrible. Something out of people. It's insane. It's really crazy. And I don't know why I kept it. I don't know why. When it was bought by Elon Musk, I was like, okay, I'm going to delete it, and then I never did. And I don't know why. And so then recently, I was like, why am I here? Like, why am I here? I'm not like fishing for like good comments or anything. So why am I here, like, kind of sitting with all these like negative things? So I deleted it, and it was like an immediate breath of fresh air. It was like I was holding my breath and I didn't realize I was.
Yeah, wow.
You know when you're watching a movie and someone's like underwater and when they finally get out of water, you're like, and you didn't realize you were like holding your breath. It was like that with Twitter, and once I deleted it, it was just like, oh my God, I can breathe. So that was great. So I think, you know, setting up those boundaries and this is easier said than done, not wrapping up your self-worth in those comments, good or bad, just, you know, let them. That's
so true.
Let your opinion of yourself and those who actually know you in real life be the things that you hold close to you. But that's easier said than done. And I am also a hypocrite, and I also take what other people say very seriously when they're online.
Hard not
Such
to,
a
isn't
people
it?
pleaser. Yeah, and I just want to please it. And I remember that with Neighbours fans, like I really wanted everyone to like me, and there were cast members going, it doesn't matter what they think. And I'm like, I know, but I want people to like me, and that's been a hard thing to kind of, you know, as a people pleaser, just like to let go of.
I'm the exact same. When it comes to, it's so easy to go, oh, like I accept myself for who I am and everything is fine. And then you see one nasty comment out of like a sea of thousands, and that's the one that you hyper focus on.
Exactly right. And it doesn't matter how many positive comments there will always be that one. It's like the kind of analogy I use is like you're walking through a forest and there are beautiful, lovely flowers and everything's fine, and then you just see a tiger out of the corner of your eye, and your eyes keep going to that like threat, that danger.
Yes,
it's the fight or flight thing. It's our fight or flight. When we see something that's scary to us, we just cannot not focus on it, no matter all of the beautiful stuff around us. So, it's like it's a defense mechanism thing. Anyway,
what do you do to support yourself when you are seeing that tiger?
It's the family and friends that really make a massive difference. It's the community of people around me that kind of bring me out of that dark place. And then also just kind of getting perspective. So getting out into nature. Like, I cannot tell you how important like being out in nature is.
Yeah.
It absolutely resets your brain and everything, and that is really powerful. So it's those kind of things. And then tea. I drink a lot of tea.
Oh,
Tea's
I
the
love
thing.
a good tea. What's your go-to?
Oh, I mean, I love English breakfast. That's the thing for me. It's the classic. But then also like peppermint tea. I really love peppermint.
Good herbal tea is just, you can't beat it, can you?
It's so good. I love it.
A hug from the inside.
It is. It really is. And it's just psychological. Like if I'm just holding the mug and it's warm, it's like, it's a beautiful thing. I love it. It's, that's me. That's my thing.
I love it. I would love to talk about your journey of self-acceptance and your trans journey.
Yeah.
How old were you when you realised that you were a woman?
I was 2.5 years old.
Wow.
So I was very young. And I told Mum straight away.
At 2?
At 2.5, yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. And I was persistent, and I've stayed consistent ever since. And it was, I don't know, this deep, innate feeling, and I don't know how it got there. It was there. So, and I just kept saying it, and my parents kind of had a let's wait and see sort of thing. For a while, probably until primary school, so until I was 5-6 years old. But I just stayed consistent since then.
Wow.
Yeah.
And I think that's 2.5 is like, that's a baby.
Yeah.
Like you don't even know how to talk properly.
Yeah.
2.5.
And that's why people are like, is this a phase? And I'm like, well, if it's a phase, it's a pretty long phase.
Especially at 2.
Yeah.
And I think that's such an important thing to bring up as well. And something I would love to ask you is, what message do you have for parents who might be going through that same journey, especially with all the things that we have in the media at the moment and the news and all the different things that are coming in, about trans rights and trans education and stuff. What do you have to say to parents whose child might be going through, who might be 2.5, and saying, hey, Mum, I'm someone different than what you think I am?
My message would be listen to your kid. Actually listen to your child. And take it seriously. Start doing that research. There's great information, lots of great resources out there. If you go to Transcend Australia, there's a lot of really wonderful resources for parents of trans kids. There's a really wonderful community of parents. Just learn as much as you can. Don't put the onus on your child to do that work for you.
Yep.
Just listen to your kid. Trust your kid. And there's, in terms of like the media storm and the culture war that's out there right now, don't kind of buy into that fear that they're trying to whip up. There's this hysteria that they're trying to whip up about trans kids especially. Don't buy into that stuff and just do your own research. And because it made such a difference for me when my parents were finally on board and started taking what I was saying as truth. It made such a difference. And kids, we need our parents' support.
Yes, 100%. And I think that is such an important point, especially as a 2-year-old, but at any age, having validation from your parents is the most important thing. And I've heard countless stories from so many different groups of people, whether it be people that are in the LGBTQIA plus community, or whether it be people that are figuring out that they're neurodivergent or that they have mental health issues or whatever it may be, and speaking to your parents and your parents affirming what you are telling them.
Yeah.
It saves lives.
It does.
It is so important to affirm what your child is telling you.
Absolutely. It really does save lives because, you can't act by yourself. When you're a kid, you need your parents to kind of be the people advocating
especially
for you.
As a little kid.
Yeah.
They're everything.
Yeah, they're the ones looking after you. So, look after us. Look after us. Listen to us. We need you. And you're the people that, we go home to every day after school. And especially, when school is really difficult, home really needs to be that safe haven. And for so many young people from all different backgrounds, it's not.
Yeah.
And that is really difficult because when school is unsafe and when home is unsafe, where do you go?
Yeah.
What do you do? Where do you go that's safe? So parents play a massive role in that, in kind of clearing the path ahead of us and searching for landmines and protecting us from, a world that can be quite unforgiving until we're ready to do that ourselves.
You and your family were speaking in your Australian Story piece about how it took a little bit longer for your dad to come to acceptance with your trans identity. Was there a light bulb moment for him that made him go, okay?
I can't quite remember, to be honest, but I do remember that whenever that light bulb moment did happen, he bought my first dress, which was incredible.
That's so beautiful.
It was such a beautiful moment. And I think I still have that dress.
Wow.
But yeah, I think it was just a matter of getting to the point in realizing that the way to protect me was to listen to me and help me affirm my gender. He was always trying to protect, but I think there were just different opinions on how to do that.
Yeah, right.
So once he came to the realization that the way to protect me was to let me be me, then he got there. I think I was probably around 7 or 8 years old. But he's good. He's good now.
That's so beautiful to hear, and so incredible that you do have such a beautiful supportive network, because it really does change everything.
Changes everything.
Yeah. It's the difference between, honestly, for a lot of people, it truly is the difference between life and death.
It is. Yeah. Well, I mean, I know for me, if I didn't have my family support, I don't know what I would have done, honestly. It would have been very dark for me because, we don't have, as kids, we don't have agency to make those decisions.
Of course.
We need parent parent support. And like, for example, trans kids right now, in terms of accessing gender affirming care, if one of your parents withholds consent, then you have to go to court to access treatment. And that's really costly, really time consuming. And so a lot of young vulnerable kids are having to go through this really unforgiving court process because there's a parent or both parents who aren't supporting them. So it's so important. It's so vital.
Yeah. There's been a lot of negative talk and a lot of negative rhetoric around trans kids, particularly recently with like the state that our world is in at the moment. In some ways, for a long time, I felt like we were progressing. And from what I'm seeing now, it almost feels like we're taking, for every step forward we're taking 10 steps backwards.
Yeah.
Do you see a positive future coming anytime soon?
I do see hope, because this wave of like the oppression or the conservatism or you know, that hatred, it's such an unnatural thing. They're having to constantly push back and stifle and suppress any sort of unique or different, you know, anything that they seem as unnatural, but actually what they're doing is the unnatural thing.
Yes.
And I can't see how that can keep going. Because they're having to, all we have to do is exist and be. All we have to do is live as ourselves. What they have to do is constantly push back, constantly push down and oppress, and they're going to get exhausted, and that can't last forever. I don't see how that can last forever. But this progress is incredibly slow. I do see hope, but it's what scares me is how many people are we going to lose along the way until we get there.
Of course.
So that's why we need our allies. That's why we need to keep speaking. That's why conversations like these are so important and powerful. And this is what they can never stop. I mean, they can't stop us from speaking right now and being incredible and connecting and being ourselves. And that's our collective power. That's what we're doing, just being visible and being seen, and that's something that they can never erase.
What is the best way that allies can help the trans community?
I think right now, given the quite insidious public debate around the existence of trans people, my message to allies would be, if you know anyone who is trans, reach out to them. Tell them you're here. Tell them you love them. That would mean so much. I know this last little period for me has been a little bit isolating, just seeing all of that stuff online, that hate towards the trans community.
Yeah, of course.
And it's been, you know, a bit of radio silence from a lot of people, and it would have meant a lot if people had actually reached out. So that actually makes a massive difference, to know that you're not alone and that there are people behind you when the world seems to be against you. And then the next things would be, you know, go to rallies and protests.
Yes.
Educate yourself, show up for us, don't be silent, and be like prepared to have difficult conversations with people you know, because, you know, if there's someone that you know who is saying something that is transphobic or perpetuating a stereotype or is just like unhelpful, be prepared to have conversations with them and call them out. Yeah, because we're often left to have those difficult conversations.
Yeah.
And that can be really isolating and sometimes, you know, can put us in a position of danger.
Yeah.
So and I know that a lot of people from a lot of different groups and communities would connect with that, you know, that we have the responsibility to do that.
It's not our job.
Yeah, it shouldn't be our job. So take that upon yourself. Lift some of the burden that we're carrying.
Yeah.
That's what I'd say. Yeah.
Slay. Georgie, it has been an absolute honour speaking to you today. I want to go speak to you for ages. I want to go catch up. Let's have a cup of tea together.
Yes.
Let's vibe. Let's have our little mental health days together.
Yeah.
Before we finish up, I have 3 questions called the Boldly Me 3 that I want to ask you.
Okay, go ahead.
So the first question is, what is one song that never fails to make you feel happy?
Ooh. About 30 Taylor Swift songs came into my head all at once, and I'm really, really struggling.
The entire Eras tour.
The entire set list of the Eras tour. I think the song that would make me happy the most is probably something like, I really love the song Fearless by Taylor Swift because it just makes me nostalgic and it's just really light and happy. Or like, I don't know, like Shake It Off. Is that really generic?
No, you know what? Sometimes generic pop songs are exactly what you need.
It's just it reminds you of just like simple times.
Yes.
It just makes me really happy.
No, I love it.
Yeah.
Number 2, if you could give any piece of advice to your 13-year-old self, what would it be?
My piece of advice would be, girl, you are enough. You are enough. Don't feel like you have to be more or better or less. Just as you are is absolutely enough.
Beautiful. Yeah. I love it.
Thanks.
Number 3 is if you could be any Disney character, who would it be?
Oh my God. Again, so many. For some reason, I don't know why, but Olaf just came into my head.
I love
so
that.
Random. Like, whoa, where did he come from? I love him. I mean, my favorite Disney film of all time is Beauty and the Beast. So
I think you'd be a beautiful Belle.
I could be a Belle, or I mean, back on the tea train, I could be Mrs. Potts because she is
fun,
made of tea, literally made.
She's
of tea,
literally she's living the life.
Yeah,
she is
the
cozy core aesthetic.
Exactly right. Exactly right. So maybe I'm Mrs. Potts or Belle.
I love it. A little fun little mixture of the two of them.
Yeah.
Georgie, thank you so much for joining me today. It has been so incredibly lovely.
Oh, thank you for having me. It's been so much fun.
What a beautiful, incredible human being. She's got the most beautiful aura, doesn't she? I just love her. I wish I could speak to her forever, have a cup of tea with her. What a beautiful person. To everyone listening, what Georgie was saying at the end there is so important. If you guys take anything away from this, it is to be an ally and be an active ally. If you have trans people in your life, if you have LGBTQIA plus people in your life, reach out to them, send them a message, give them a hug, tell them that you love them, tell them that you're there for them, show up, be present, attend rallies, put your pronouns in your bio if it is safe for you to do so. It is so important that every single person shows up because every single one of us deserve to live a life where we can freely, completely be ourselves. I hope you guys enjoyed listening to this episode because I know that I sure enjoyed talking in it. If you guys did enjoy it, maybe give it a like, maybe give it a review, maybe let a friend know. Also, most importantly, make sure that you are staying hydrated, make sure you're being kind to yourself, make sure you're being kind to others, make sure to reach out to your trans friends, and most importantly, do whatever makes you feel happy. Goodbye.